Welcome to the alarming archives. Today we will jump into some frightening stories regarding scary pursuits. Let's begin with our first story. Chase through the Crescent City. It was a misty evening in the heart of New Orleans, the kind of night that stories are born from. I had just turned 25 and decided to celebrate by taking a stroll through the historic French Quarter. The narrow, dimly lit streets were deserted, with only the faint sound of distant jazz echoing through the alleys. As I walked past St. Louis Cathedral, I noticed a shadowy figure trailing behind me. At first, I brushed it off as a mere coincidence, but my instincts screamed otherwise. With each turn I made, the figure mimicked my steps, always maintaining a calculated distance. I quickened my pace, my heart pounding in my chest, and ducked into the narrow cobblestone alleys of Pirates Alley. The figure pursued relentlessly. Panic coursed through me as I realized I was being followed by someone with sinister intentions. I veered into Jackson Square, hoping the presence of others would deter my pursuer. But to my horror, the square was deserted, bathed in eerie moonlight. It felt like a scene from a nightmare. The panic took set even more as I realized I would have figured this situation out myself. My only option was to make a break for it. I sprinted down Chartres Street, my footsteps echoing in the empty night. The figure gave chase, gaining ground. Just when I thought I couldn't go any further, I spotted the imposing iron gates of the historic LaLaurie mansion. With adrenaline surging, I shook the gate fervently. With no other choice, I squeezed through the bars of the LaLaurie mansion's iron gate and dashed inside, just inches ahead of my pursuer. He screamed and rattled the gate, their voice filled with menace, but they couldn't breach the formidable entrance. Once inside the courtyard of the mansion, I continued to flee, making my way through the overgrown garden and into an alleyway that led deeper into the French Quarter. My breaths came in ragged gasps and fear fueled my steps. I couldn't shake the image of the shadowy figure who had pursued me, his malevolent presence hanging over me like a sinister cloud. I emerged onto a crowded street, where the warm glow of streetlights and the laughter of revelers offered a stark contrast to the night's horrors. As I slowed to catch my breath, I couldn't help but wonder who had been following me and why. The memory of that chilling chase still haunts my dreams, a reminder of the mysteries hidden within the heart of New Orleans and the narrow escape that changed my life forever. The Vanishing Pursuer. It was a crisp autumn evening in Boston, and I was making my way through the historic Beacon Hill neighborhood. The cobblestone streets were bathed in the warm glow of street lamps, and the air was filled with the scent of fallen leaves. Little did I know this evening's stroll would lead to an eerie encounter I could never explain. As I meandered through the narrow streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following me. It started as a subtle sense of unease, but it quickly escalated into a gnawing fear. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, there was no one there. It was as if the shadows themselves were my pursuer. Determined to dismiss my irrational paranoia, I continued walking. But with every step, the sensation of being watched grew stronger. My breaths came in short, anxious bursts as I quickened my pace, the echo of my footsteps amplifying my unease. Finally, I reached the steps of my brownstone apartment. My heart pounded in my chest as I fumbled for my keys, desperately trying to unlock the door. I stepped inside, slammed it shut, and locked it behind me. Relief washed over me. I was finally safe. I stood in the dimly lit foyer, listening intently. Silence. I reasoned that it had all been in my head, a product of a tired mind. But as I ascended the staircase to my second-floor apartment, a shadow moved in the corner of my eye. I froze, my heart once again racing. The presence was real. The footsteps were unmistakable. Someone was inside my home, silently following me. Panic surged as I retreated into my bedroom and quietly locked the door. Minutes felt like hours as I strained to hear any sound from beyond the door. But there was nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just an eerie silence that hung in the air. Summoning every ounce of courage, I flung the bedroom door open and raced through the apartment, searching for the intruder. But it was as if they had vanished into thin air. There was no sign of anyone, no open windows, no unlocked doors, nothing. Drenched in sweat and trembling, I couldn't make sense of what had just transpired. It was as if my pursuer had simply ceased to exist. I was left with a chilling sense of dread and the unsettling certainty that I had encountered something beyond the realm of explanation. To this day, I can't fathom what or who had followed me that night and then vanished into the ether. It remains an enigma, a haunting reminder that the world is full of mysteries that defy logic and reason. Chased through the Miami night. It was a sweltering summer night in Miami. I had just turned 30, and as I drove along the iconic Ocean Drive, I was hoping for a peaceful end to my birthday. Little did I know, this night would turn into a heart-pounding experience I'd never forget. The neon lights of Ocean Drive and the distant sound of music filled the air as I cruised down the iconic street. The city's vibrant nightlife was in full swing. I was lost in thought, reminiscing about the day when I noticed a sleek black sports car in my rearview mirror. It seemed to come out of nowhere, tailgating me aggressively. If you know Miami, however, this is not a strange sight at all, so I barely thought something of it. I assumed the driver was in a hurry, so I changed lanes to let them pass. But the black car stayed right behind me, its blinding headlights never leaving my rearview mirror. It was unsettling, but I brushed it off, thinking they would eventually pass me. Minutes turned into an eternity as the black car continued to follow me closely. Panic started to creep in as this seemed quite strange now. I tried changing lanes again, but the car matched my every move. It was no longer a coincidence. I was being pursued, and I had no idea why. Desperation set in, and I decided to make a series of sharp turns into various streets, hoping to lose the mysterious pursuer. But they were relentless, tailing me through every twist and turn, and I couldn't shake them. My heart raced, and my mind raced even faster. I needed to escape this relentless chase. I decided I needed to do more to shake him. I had to do something drastic. I made a daring move, racing through a yellow light onto a busy avenue. The black car followed, but the traffic gave me a glimmer of hope. As I sped through the bustling streets, I couldn't help but glance at the rearview mirror. The black car was struggling to keep up, losing ground in the maze of vehicles. My relief was palpable. I seized the opportunity to take a sudden turn into a residential neighborhood. I drove down winding streets and through quiet suburbs, checking my rearview mirror at every intersection. The black car was nowhere in sight. Finally, after what felt like an eternity and a number of roundabout turns, I pulled into my own driveway. My heart still pounded, but it was a mixture of fear and relief. I had narrowly escaped whatever threat had been lurking behind me. I knew I couldn't leave my car in plain sight. With trembling hands, I pulled into the garage, leaving the lights off. I wanted to make sure that if the black car happened to pass through the neighborhood, they wouldn't see my car and connect it to me. As I sat in the darkness of my garage, the engine still humming softly, I couldn't help but wonder who had been chasing me and why. The mysteries of that night haunted me, a reminder that sometimes reality can be stranger and more terrifying than any fiction. A frightening chase in Willowbrook. It was a moonless night in the quiet town of Willowbrook, and I, an 18-year-old girl, was on my way home from a late-night shift. In my tiredness, I had mistakenly taken my co-worker's bag, identical to mine. To save time, I decided to take a shortcut through a dimly lit path. Little did I know that this shortcut would lead to a terrifying experience that defied explanation. As I pedaled along the narrow trail, the silence was broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. The oppressive stillness was unsettling, and I had an uneasy feeling that I was not alone. I quickened my pace, my heart racing as I sensed a presence behind me. Suddenly, the beam of a car's headlights pierced the blackness, blinding me. A vehicle had appeared out of nowhere, and it was closing in on me fast. My heart leaped into my throat as a man's hand shot out from the car window and grabbed my arm, trying to pull me toward the vehicle. Panicking, I rummaged through the bag. Realization hit that it was my co-worker's. By sheer luck, I found a canister of pepper spray. I hastily sprayed it toward the man's face, releasing a powerful burst that sent him reeling in pain and his vision obscured. I seized the opportunity to veer off the trail, crashing into the underbrush. The pursuing car screeched to a halt, and its occupants stumbled out. The one who tried grabbing me was disoriented and coughing from the pepper spray. A second man in a hoodie jumped out of the car to continue their pursuit. Just as I was about to make a run for it, a low growl echoed nearby. A large stray dog, drawn by the commotion, rushed out of the darkness and came to my aid. With a thunderous bark, the dog lunged at the other attacker who had jumped out of the car, forcing him to retreat. Terrified by the unexpected canine defender, the men scrambled to regain their bearings. The dog's ferocity seemed to deter them, and they quickly retreated into their car, speeding away into the night. With the dog as my unexpected savior, I raced away from the scene, my bike's tires tearing through the darkness. Fear and adrenaline coursed through me as I pedaled for my life, the harrowing encounter behind me. When I finally reached the safety of a well-lit street, I realized the dog had disappeared into the night, leaving me with a mixture of relief and gratitude. Thanks to the luck of taking my coworker's bag, it contained the pepper spray that saved me from my assailants. Trembling, I dialed 911 and reported the terrifying incident. The police arrived shortly thereafter, but the abductors were never found. The memory of that harrowing night in Willowbrook remains etched in my mind, a reminder of the chilling terrors that can unfold in the most unexpected circumstances.